All right, so we are live. So thank you for joining us. I'm here with Become a Saint, also known as Derek. We are going to be talking about the conclave, and we're first going to discuss our personal experiences with previous conclaves, and then moving through some of the notable issues with what's going on right now, given the state of things. so. Um, So,
Yeah, thanks for
Derek,
having me, man.
yeah, no problem. Derek, when it comes to Derek, when it comes to this conclave, what was the what was your experience with the previous one, and then how does it relate to this one? Because, um,
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
it was, I am somewhat, I would say like, I don't know if it's 4 or 3 years new to the church.
Mhm.
So, in terms of like conclave and me being familiar with it, this is I consider it my first one. So,
Okay,
we talked a little before, but I'm like,
yeah.
I could not imagine the Pope resigning and being around for Pope Francis. That would have been nuts. So, all I know is Pope Francis, basically.
Well, yeah,
Basically.
right. Go ahead.
No, that's basically it.
Right. So that's pretty cool that this is your first conclave,
I'm
given
pretty
that you've
excited for it.
yeah, so okay, you've been Catholic for 3 years. Um, my wife's been Catholic for one,
Oh,
and
no
so
way.
like this is her first conclave as well. So it's very that's very interesting. so uh because like for me, I've been through like the first one, I really didn't pay attention. Pope Benedict after John Paul II died. Uh
Yeah.
that had probably to do with the fact that I was the way I was brought up. And so like I didn't have a whole bunch of exposure to the actual governing of the church. It was more like local, and my parents and family didn't seem to care. so,
Yeah.
um,
Sure.
whereas like in college, um, actually a little bit past college, grad school, the Pope Francis comes, and so Benedict resigns. It's the first resignation in like 600 years,
It's
and like which
insane,
is a
man.
crazy amount of time.
I
Um,
cannot imagine. I really can't. It
well,
would just
so
be
like
nuts.
so it was nuts, and then like when you look at like how people reacted like to a lot of like what he did, that
Mhm.
energy just kept like stayed there. Um
What do you mean?
like so like I mean
Oh, with Pope Francis off the rip?
right, because you have this pretty intense situation where you think that Pope Benedict is being pressured to resign, and then
Oh, yeah, I see.
so like you have that energy and it just never died down, right?
I
Like
honestly don't think
so
that's, like, unfair, especially for, like, the older folks, because it's like, "What just happened?" And, like, I kinda get that. I'd be kind of a
right.
hard one to shake, to be honest.
Yeah, and so like with this one, um, there seems to be a lot more tension. Like I was paying attention to the previous one, but this one seemed like there's just a lot more tension. Like there's a lot more things that I think people are being apprehensive about. Um, like I know, like
It
as
feels
much,
that way. I certainly have some of those feelings too. I think everybody does a little.
well,
No matter which side of the, I don't wanna use, like, political terms, but I know I'm going to. But, like, which side of the aisle you're on, right? But that's the
well,
best I got. But I feel like either way, you gotta feel it a little bit.
right, and when you see like lists of schism, like I there was a previous like just before I got on, I saw it where people were just like, if this person's elected, it's a schism. If that person elected, like that is a very very cynical perspective.
Yeah, that's
Um,
awful.
and so it's like, and the list was like 10 people, like 10 of the Cardinals, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like that's
Dude,
insane. Um,
yeah, that's a very unhealthy way to think. I hope they're wrong. I assume
well,
they probably are.
well, I hope they are too. The only exception I can see is like the Germans. Um, and
Yeah,
but that outside of that, I can't really think of anyone else that would be an issue. Um,
that's I really didn't think about that. That's pretty true. That would be pretty serious.
yeah, because
I think
like,
everybody would be on edge.
yep.
Because like again, like I recognize my perspective's limited. I like Pope Francis a lot.
Mhm.
like I enjoyed. I got to a habit of where I'd read the daily press releases from the Vatican and everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for a while there. I mean, that's when I was like, wow, this is really great stuff. But that said, though, like he dealt with it okay, but it would have been. I'm not making a criticism because it's such a delicate situation.
Mhm.
But seeing them clamp down on it a little harder would always. I mean, I think everybody would have liked that. Now, whether that would have been a good idea or not, totally different question. But
Well, right, because we don't
yeah,
know, like, we don't know how much the internal influence they have,
right.
right?
Or like what
So,
internal conflicts that quote unquote party is having. So there's
right.
probably people at play against each other that we're not seeing. I mean, I guarantee you there's all kinds of stuff happening. There's a
Yes.
lot going on behind the scenes, like you said.
Yeah, and like the general meetings that are happening now, like they're really getting to know each other. And so like they have resources to like get to know each other. But before we get into that, I did want to bring up something that I thought was like very notable, which was the uh, Cardinal Angelo Buclo. Buclu? I'm terrible with these. I'm terrible
Oh
with
yeah.
that.
Let me see.
So
Yeah.
so he has withdrawn from the Papal Conclave voluntarily, in the following the wishes of Pope Francis. He's been accused of embezzlement, which he was put on trial for in 2023, but he has excused himself. And so that obviously has created a little bit of buzz, but it's also opened up conversations about um, others maybe bowing out. And the
Hmm.
only go ahead. Sorry, I thought
Oh no, it's just interesting. You're
yeah.
good. Keep going.
So like the only other you know conversation that I think makes sense is not necessarily bowing out, but basically looking at people under a microscope, those that were influenced, that their cardinal status was influenced by Cardinal McCarrick. That
Hmm.
is the, I mean, outside of like extreme cases, right? Like if there was like a Rupnik situation or something like that, obviously like that's a really big problem. But but when it comes to the appointments of um that were influenced by Cardinal McCarrick, that be something that the other cardinals would be concerned about.
Oh yeah. I mean, I would think so. It's got to be on their minds, right?
I mean, I hope so.
Don't know
Like,
how it.
because like
I don't know how it
that's
isn't.
a very American phenomenon, right? Like the whole
Yeah.
sexual abuse when it exploded and how it did. That is a
Yeah.
very United States thing. And so like ever since it, in 2002, I just did my confirmation. I just turned 16. So like my whole like Catholic adult life has been in that sphere where it's like we've been exposed to it, and there's just a number of um abuse crises that keep coming up that need to be addressed, and a lot of them point to McCarrick. Not all of them, obviously. I'm not
Yeah,
going to
but a
say like
lot do.
he's yeah, but like a lot do. So
Sure.
uh given but like because like with the other cardinals, like we've heard them say that they don't know other cardinals that well.
Yeah,
So
that was crazy. I learned that today. Just never thought about it.
I have the what is it? This statement from the Swedish cardinal, what's his name? Cardinal Eberolius, which is one of those that is being seriously looked at as a potential front runner for one of
Hmm.
for the Pope. He said, let's see, sorry, it's I'm slightly off with this.
With the media thing, it's still
Yeah,
through the
so the
media.
Swedish cardinal said that he hasn't personally reached other cardinals, but that he received a list of all the names, and we'll try to learn more about them before the conclave begins May 7th. So, like in a week. Um,
That's wild.
now, now we have a week, but up until now, it's more through the media. So basically, like when you see pieces from New York Times or another international media outlet, what they
That's
say
what they're
about
learning too.
right, like they are literally reading that. Like, so Cardinal Sarah, okay, like just as a example, a hit piece comes out on him. Other Cardinals very well may read that, and that's going to have an influence on him. Now he's like more notable because of the positions he's held in the past, but if you have something like Raymond Burke or I don't know a whole bunch of Cardinal names, so I'm just going with ones that I know.
Sure.
And so like I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on all the Cardinals. So
Oh man,
yeah,
I'm with you. Don't worry.
yeah. So but he
Yeah,
goes
that's
on to
crazy
say,
though.
well, everyone knows Cardinal Parolin and a few others, and of course I've met some during the years, but maybe 20 or 30. And there is, in terms of those that can vote, about 133 that
Right.
can vote.
That's
So
wild.
yeah, and the reason why Parolin has an advantage is because he would meet with, like, every 5 years when Cardinals would come in, he would meet them. He would welcome them. And so he has that advantage
Ah,
as like part of his position to do
yeah, that's
that.
huge. And
Not
he's
sure
70,
how to
right?
feel about most of them not knowing each other.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I really did not know that. I mean, it makes sense, but yeah, yeah,
Because we I don't know, like in my mind, like growing up, I always thought, all right, well, these Cardinals probably communicate to each other.
right.
But it's like, no, they don't.
No, right. I guess like a lot of them are bishops, and they just go back and deal with what they have to deal with, and then it's like, oh, I mean, I assume a lot of them are like, oh, I have to have to take care of this, and then I mean, yeah, when do they all meet up otherwise, right? I just never thought about it.
Yeah, because I mean, I know we've had like a lot of synods, but not all Cardinals have gone to those synods, right? Like, so like
True.
that that's a problem. But it does what I mean, on one hand, it does show a focus on their bishoprics, right? Like that they're like who they're responsible for, they're focused on that,
Yeah.
or at least see, benefit of the doubt. That's what I would give that benefit to.
Yeah.
So
That's kind of reassuring in some ways, but yeah, on the other hand, it's like, huh, well, yeah, most of these guys don't even know each other. A lot of them maybe have never even met,
well, like that's and that can be like
at least
scary,
formally.
right? Like that can be scary but good at the same time, because there's this assumption, like, underneath all of this politics, because this is a political thing.
Oh, for sure.
Underneath all of this is the assumption that they all bring Jesus to mass, right? Like they're the ones that say mass. They're the ones that are in charge of their diocese or archdiocese, and they're the ones that are in communion with Jesus. So like there's that like baseline
Yeah.
assumption, and it's a good assumption, like, right, like it's a fairly good assumption. It's not, well, we're going to, this is just simply politics. Like this is not like Trump versus
Right.
Clinton.
Right. Where it's solely political.
Right, like there's a baseline that it has a very charitable, I mean, it's a very charitable baseline is what I should
Sure.
say.
There's a lot of
um,
hope I put in that personally.
well, yeah,
I
and
think generally that's probably true. Generally, they again, maybe I'm being naive, but generally maybe the intentions are pure.
well,
I would assume
at
so.
least today, like I would say today, they're more pure than what they were in like some of the Borgia state. Like,
Yeah.
you
Okay.
know,
Some of that stuff was a nightmare. That's true. When you
well,
compare it to
absolutely,
this,
but it was like, you know, comparatively, like I'm sure it's a lot better now, or at least I hope it's a lot better now, because at the
there
end of the
was
day, like this is all backdoor stuff. Like we only
yeah,
see so much of it.
there was I made a post about this because actually my wife showed it to me, but it was the longest papal conclave ever. You might already know about this, but
Mhm.
it was 3 years long, and it was after the death of Clement IV. It was when they elected Gregory X. But I don't know all the details, but the divisions were they were like solely political divisions between like I think French and Italian cardinals. So I don't know
That
all
makes
that was going
sense.
on at the time, but it took 3 years. And when they finally met again, they took the roof off of the building and totally gave them bread and water and said, "You've got to do something."
Mm,
But yeah, when you think
that's
about stuff
hilarious.
like that, it's like, yeah, we're probably all right.
Well, because we have a lot more. So, like, we also do have a lot more bishops or cardinals from other countries now,
That's
because
true.
there was a focus in Europe, and now that's spread out. Uh, we have the just to add this to the stage, like he's from Sweden. I
Hmm.
believe he's the first cardinal from a Scandinavian country.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah, I read
nuts.
that today.
So, like,
Yeah, I thought so too. Like, yeah, that was pretty
I know
wild.
it's still technically Europe, but it's like it's a very, I mean, it's a Protestant country that he comes from,
Right.
and then like you've got a lot more in Africa, South America, in the United States, and so it's not going to be as congested. I mean, I shouldn't.
No,
I
that's a
should
good
also
point.
say Asia too, because Asia didn't usually have that. Um, I don't know
True.
what the number is now, but it's greater than zero. So,
Yeah. No, it's a
um,
good point. I mean, because you're gonna get that like I don't know if bottleneck's the right word, but if you have like 50% of your cardinals are from two countries, I don't know if that was the case then like there's gonna be problems eventually. That's a
well,
good
so
point.
well that I mean that brings up, so like if you look at the diocese for Italy, they are like really small, and Italy has like a ridiculous number of bishops for it being Italy. Okay, like a country that's basically the size of what looks to be Michigan. I may be off a little bit on that, but basically Michigan. And Michigan, which is where I live, there's like 7 bishops. So like 7 bishops to like 70. Like the dioceses are just much smaller, and so it allows for like more to come up into like power positions. I'm actually for smaller dioceses because I think the bishop should know his flock better than like 1 to 1 million. Like I think
Yeah.
that's ridiculous. Um, but but the concentration of dioceses being that way in Europe, and then more spread out in other countries, like it's almost like there hasn't been a reform of the diocese, like a gerrymandering of the diocese in other countries, because we're basically treating those other countries, we being the church, like it's like we're still evangelizing to those
Right.
countries
Like it's new
as
ground.
opposed to just establishing and putting our feet deeper into the ground.
Yeah. No, it's totally true. Um, I just looked it up. There's 530 bishop ordinaries of Italy.
Yeah, it's not small. I mean,
Pretty
what's
wild.
what's their square feet or square miles?
I don't know. Let's see. Italy square miles. No way,
Absolutely.
really?
Great for
116,350?
Okay, because Michigan's 96,000. So it's a little bit bigger.
I'm
All right.
amazed
So
that you know that. But yeah,
well,
that is
so
a
I
crazy
recently so I
comparison.
recently did a so I the reason why I know that is because I threw up a meme on my meme channel. And the meme said was comparing the UK to Michigan in terms of size, because they used to control a whole bunch of the world and now they don't. And so it was kind of like an American joke to them. And so I was like, well, is the UK actually like about the size of Michigan? The UK is 94,000 square feet
No
and
way.
Michigan's 96. So that's why it's in my head. So like it's, and so the
That's
fact that,
crazy. I thought it was way bigger. Interesting.
yeah. And so, yeah, meaning you have 500 bishops in a space that the US gets 7 within. And I'd probably say like bring in Rhode Island or something, like probably 9 or 10. If we're going to like match the square feet. But yeah, it's like, it is such a ridiculous,
That's
it's,
insane.
it's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
I never knew that. And I just looked up for the US. There's 441. Again, this is all like AI overview, so I can just read it quickly, but it says 441 active and retired Catholic bishops in the US and the Virgin
Yeah.
Islands.
Yep, and there's 179. So there's 179 dioceses in Latin Rite dioceses in the United States.
Huh.
So there's a bunch of
That'd be
auxiliary
nuts.
bishops. Yeah. So
Wow.
could I imagine an English pope? I mean, I'd like to imagine an English pope and then whacking the king on the head. That's what I would like to imagine.
That'd be incredible. That would be insane in the best way.
Well, so okay, and he brings up a good point, and so we shouldn't be surprised that Italy lobby is strong, right? I also do want to point out, like, this is so, and some people kind of miss this, but we are talking about the Bishop of Rome, and so it would make sense that the Bishop of Rome would be Italian, like from a very naturalistic perspective, where it's like principle of subsidiarity, like he grew up in Rome. He's the bishop grew up in Rome, was in charge of Rome, and then as a maybe a monsignor or something, and then eventually became pope, or like. But that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I'm just saying though, like it makes sense that an Italian pope, like there's I what is it, like 500 or so years it was just an Italian pope over and over and over again. And
It's gotta be
besides,
more, right? I think like
well, so in a row, so like as in
I
like
see.
consecutively. And so
No, I
like,
believe you then. That makes sense.
and I think Pope John Paul II was the first one that wasn't. And so we're just like breaking a whole bunch of traditions in the last 60 years, 70 years in terms of the what's going on with the papacy. So resignation, non-Italian pope for about the same distance.
The non-Italian Pope thing, that is, if you think about it, like what you were saying, that is pretty nuts. That like, I don't know. To me, it's like if it's an Italian Pope for some reason, that's just more comforting to me. I'm like, that's the way it's supposed to be. Got it. I don't know why I think that, but it does just
well,
seem
so
that way.
and like someone from, so like Pope Francis, just for example, grows up in a completely different environment, right? Like when it comes to South America, like Argentina is not the same as Europe. Like it's just not. Like and um so for him, he had to overcome a cultural divide, right? Like, and so it makes sense that from that standpoint, you would be inclined to a European pope, because the European pope knows what's going on, and especially with what's going on in Europe right now with the refugees and the usurping of cultures.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
like
very good point.
yeah, so it would make sense that someone from there would be like, all right, well, we're going to tackle the EU and say you guys are crazy. Like, I'm sorry, like I am very much against the EU's policies because and I'm very pro like what Poland's doing.
Oh yeah, me too.
That I'm Polish, besides the fact that I'm full, besides the fact I'm Polish, because they're just standing their ground saying, yeah, we're not bringing in any random people from countries that have a completely different religion than ours.
Yeah,
So
that are at best neutral, but typically typically hate us. And
yeah, and
no, I mean
so
it's kind of
yeah,
true. I heard I don't usually watch. I don't know if I'm pretty neutral about it, but Avoiding Babylon. They seem like
yeah,
good guys. I mean, that besides the fact that they have a good show. And I was watching the one they did. What was it, yesterday or 2 days ago? And Anthony
mhm,
said something similar. He's like, it's great to have a pope that has your back and gets what's going on. And
yep.
it made me think exactly about this. I'm like, I wonder what it would be like for like I don't know, like any European pope to come up. Would it be different? Would he have influence on the EU?
Well, like,
Because
can you
it
imagine
would be
Mark?
something.
Can you imagine Cardinal Marx becoming Pope?
I don't know much about him.
So he's the head of, or I believe he's still the president of the German Conference of Bishops. So that would be a very He would probably have influence to the EU, but not to what I think most
I
of
see.
us. Yeah. And so
I definitely mean the other other
yeah.
direction.
So like
That would be a
so
nightmare. I mean, that would be pretty bad.
so that would be
Especially
something
seeing the
like,
Church of Europe saying like, yeah,
well, yeah,
more explicitly.
and then you have like someone like Cardinal Mueller. So I believe he's also German, but he's on the other side.
Mhm.
And so like him doing, going in there and fighting for like basically the rights of the EU itself. It's like weird because the EU is undermining itself. But it's like there's all these political dimensions that people are, they either don't recognize because they don't follow international news, or they don't understand the gravitas of like the Pope, right? Like the Pope is not just
Yeah.
some head of the church in the sense of like we're going to compartmentalize the church. He's the head of the world spiritually.
Yeah.
Like if you want moral advice from anyone, and you're the leader of a country, you should go to the Pope.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like that's what you should do. And so like the fact that you have something like the EU, and Pope Francis, did talk to the EU, and I wish he was stronger on some things, but he didn't.
Sure.
Like, yeah, I guess that's all I'm going to say. I wish he was
Oh,
stronger
I
on
understand.
some things. So like, because
Yeah, you
I
still
don't want
see
to go.
people saying like the especially so when it first started, it was that scene of the dead baby on the beach. I don't know if I could say this on am I breaking TOS?
Yeah, that's fine.
It was a news story, but
Yeah.
I'm sure y'all are all familiar with it. So like I think he did like a bunch of interviews like immediately after that. And so people constantly quote that and he said, "Oh, he said this, he said this." And I mean, him being from Argentina, I mean, does Argentina have are they dealing with anything like that? I mean, you kind of make a good point there. Because when he comes over and sees that, I mean, it's got to be just like, I don't know. I don't really know where I'm going with this, but I see what you're saying.
That's fine.
At a European Pope in that case, I think it would have been a little different
But at the same
in
time,
most
like,
cases.
right, like, but at the same time, there is like this. You have someone from Africa. Like Africa has a pretty, I'll say, like orthodox mindset. Like
Hmm.
they are very gun ho about the faith in a way that I think we aren't. So when I say we, I mean like the entire Western group of countries,
Oh, yeah, for
because
sure.
they're dealing with like death on their doorstep, like going to
Mhm.
mass, whereas like I don't. Like I don't like
Oh, I
uh
couldn't imagine, man.
yeah, like
It's easy to forget that's like a
and
daily reality for them.
right, and like there's a bunch of I remember this one tweet I used in one of the memes where I use the reason why I used it in the memes was because it was I think very profound, and memes aren't always a joke, but it created like it was what was it? It was the guy said these people in this country, they're going to mass even though they had to bury 10 of their brothers and sisters
Mm.
because they went to mass last week. Like last week. And then it's like American Catholics. Do we have to go to mass? Let's go to soccer instead.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yep, that is like
Yeah,
that is
can we go to the one
completely
2 hours
different
later
life.
so I could get breakfast? Yeah, stuff like
Yeah.
that. Very normal. Yeah, it's not even close to being in our conscience. I mean, speaking for myself, it's never crossed my mind. Probably never will. So yeah. It's
Well,
honestly incredible too that like I mean, I don't know of any like quote unquote liberal African bishops that are prominent. And that's kind of impressive too because if they watered it down, that it seems like it would be tempting to do that because you might be able to alleviate some pressure. You know what I mean? It feels like that temptation would be there. So it kind
well,
of makes
so
it all the more incredible.
so they have such a they actually have a dynamic like ours because we have so many people from America like going to Africa being missionaries. that are Protestant. And so they're
Yeah, true.
starting to actually have, like, they're in a life or death situation all the time, but they have the unfortunate plague of Protestant
Yeah.
missionaries.
And it's
And
exported, so it's the most like
yes.
it's pretty
And
intense
it's
too.
like the reason why I call it a plague, not the people themselves. Obviously, it's not that. It's the
Yeah, of
mindset.
course.
It's the mindset. Because then you see, because like you'll see charismatic, like very Pentecostal, not charismatic Catholics, but very Pentecostal worship services,
Mhm.
or pray, all that fun stuff. And so there's a dynamic there where it's like almost night and day, where it's like, okay, well, you're a Catholic and like you're gritting your teeth, or you're enjoying the joy of Christ and your family, and you appreciate it. But then you have, like, I kind of call the like, when it comes to like Pentecostals and stuff, it's like a superficial, like, dopamine hit,
For sure.
where it's
I
just
went to
like
a Pentecostal camp when I was in 6th grade.
oh, okay, I had
For
no
a
idea.
week, dude. It was like the most scandalizing experience of my whole life.
Oh,
It's
did they
like
try to make you cry?
oh, yeah, it's all emotional.
It's
It's
all
like
emotional.
a
Okay.
constant attempt for, like, dopamine hits, yeah.
Okay.
A
Because
lot of
like
those
that.
people, I know them, I kept up with them, a lot of them fell away, which is sad. It's because obviously, you can't chase that forever. I mean,
Well,
everybody here knows that. I'm not speaking to the choir,
right. But like
but
that's
yeah, that
that,
stuff's everywhere, man.
and in the fact that it's in a place like Africa, like they know they can't, like, I think they can't placate how we placate, because for us, we kind of make it a mental game on ourselves. Well, we have to look more like the Protestants, or we have to appease the Protestants to bring them over. But then
Yeah,
it's like, but then you lose yourself in doing so. Like, you
certainly,
lose
you
the
definitely
identity
can.
of the church, and so like the identity is very stark there. Like, there's still, like, obviously worship and whatever, but sorry, I know that this is kind of turned into an African thing, but the idea
It's
of like
relevant though.
Africa. Yeah, because like if you have someone from that area, they are going to understand um real, let's just say, real problems. Like, if you watched Matt Walsh with his ideology video. He went over to Africa and
No.
says, "Hey, can a man be a woman?"
Oh,
Right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and they were
yeah,
they were just like, that's ridiculous," and like laughed at him. And
yeah.
so, right, because like and it's not to say that that's how everybody in Africa is that way, but
But that's the general, yeah,
yes,
that's the
because like
general
it's
culture.
ridiculous to think I'm just I know I turn like modern politics now, but it's like that is it is ridiculous. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point though. When you're getting exported Pentecostals and like stuff like that, you're gonna be like, okay, well, the lines are gonna be way more clearly drawn, and you're
Yeah.
like, this is Catholicism, this is quote unquote Protestantism. Just to be as fair as possible. But that's
Yeah.
what they see it as, and that's what it is there. It's
Yeah,
insanity.
and but they do, you have like places like Uganda, where it has like a split between like Anglicans and Catholics, and they were
Oh,
basically there the whole time together. They basically arrived at the same time, and they're like 50% each of the population. um
oh,
so I the martyr saint patron, I forgot his name, but he's like the patron saint of Uganda. When I researched him, that's how he died and everything. I do have a short on him. I just don't remember his name right now, and sorry, but
you're good. I think I know who you're talking about.
yeah, and he's a great example of like the type of Catholic we should have today in dealing with most of our like social issues. And so, but all right, so that's that.
Yeah.
Sorry, like I don't want to
No,
like
you're,
spend too much
I
time
find
on.
it's interesting, man. Talk about whatever you want. I think it's relevant too, but I'll let you switch gears.
Well, yeah. So like this is the website for the College of Cardinals report. So from my recollection, the College of Cardinals report was starting, as in they were like interviewing and researching the Cardinals at the beginning of the last conclave. So for the one that elected Pope Francis, that's when they were looking into it. I remember EWTN, or I'm sorry, not EWTN, Ave Maria Radio, which is a Michigan-based radio. They had reporters that were talking to the people who started this, and that was one of their, they were saying, they don't really know anybody when they come into these elections, and that this is to help them see that. So like, if we go into like,
this is more for them, is what they're saying?
yes,
I
not
did not know
because
that.
like we don't. I mean, as much as we're talking about it,
Yeah, like what does it actually
we
help
don't
us?
matter, right? Like we don't
Yeah.
matter in this election. This is a like, it is an election, but it's more like an aristocracy, right? Like, so it's
Right.
the elite of electing their leader. And I don't say that pejoratively. I mean, because like I'm actually more about aristocracy than I am about republic. Because an expectation of like moral virtue matters, and we lose that in a democracy.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to cite the fact our current state of politics and what we've been convinced under like the last 10 years is a perfect example. Yeah, it's just.
I mean, if I wanted to, I couldn't really argue with you about that.
So
not that I would. I agree with you. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be happy. Yeah. I'm all for discussing that because it's.
I mean, I totally agree. We would just be. It wouldn't be a good one. Totally agree with you.
So, so right here they have 20, and I know the list that you gave me, it was from Religion News.
Mm-hmm.
They cite the website. Where do they cite the website? The Cardinal Report, the website Cardinal Report. So that's what we were just on. But they only have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just 6.
Yeah, they missed a ton of them.
Yeah, and even in here, like, you don't have Cardinal Sarah, but like, or some of the others, because like Cardinal Sarah has a lot going for him because he's very notable in the positions he held, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like some of these others, like you just don't know, and based off this guy who's actually in this list and in this list that you shared, let's see, Cardinal
Arborelius.
Yeah, he's in both, and he's like, I don't know that many people, and so okay, so what are we gonna do? Like, so hopefully this website has translation, because I don't know. I don't know if I can translate this. Oh, I can. English and Italian. Okay.
That's the other two. That's so funny.
Will that help with the Swedish guy? I don't know. That seems awfully limiting now that I'm looking at that. So, I don't know. I don't know how many people speak English that are in there, but
I bet he's probably fine. Did you know he was raised Lutheran?
Yeah, up in the article the article you
yeah, I'm glad you saw that. That blew my mind. I'm like, could you imagine being like a convert on the path to a court? That's crazy.
Yeah,
but go ahead. I'm sorry. Just interesting side note.
Well, but like it's interesting because like, so there's two ways of looking at his example, right? Like, just if you wanted a deep dive, you could go the route of, well, he knows what it's like being in a country that was surrounded by people who didn't care or really didn't like you when it came to being Catholic. Or where he'll have kind of like a bulwark or a thick skin for dealing with Protestants.
Mm-hmm.
Or the route of, I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but compromise, where it's like I'm going to put out an olive branch and then, endorse things that are questionable. And I say both of them, not because that's what I think. I don't know him, so I'm not saying one way or the other that's where he's definitively going. But it's a potentiality, right? Like we
Sure.
have cardinals that are advocating things they absolutely should not be advocating. And you can read some of them. I mean, you can read all of them here actually, because it talks about it. But it's just the reality that some cardinals do not have an orthodox perspective, and that
Yeah.
they could potentially be pope.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's
but
something
that
I've kind of had to reckon with too, with this being like again, like I'm 30, but this is really my first conclave, and that's kind of been a hard thing to realize. It's like that's possible. I mean, that's
yeah.
totally possible.
Did you read Scott Hahn?
I have a Scott Hahn book, and I've only read 10 pages of it so far. But I've seen him, like, I did the what is it, the Eucharistic revival. I was like went to that at my parish, and he did a lot of speaking there. Love him.
Oh, okay.
There's no
So
reason
he
I haven't
actually
read his book other than laziness.
okay.
He
So
was on video. He was not present physically.
oh, he was not. I got it.
Yeah,
So
he did a lot of the content for that.
yeah. So he is he used to have when he was going around and very prolific in doing I don't want to say podcasts. He did mostly like when he would visit places and then people would pay to see him. I forget what you call that, but he would just do
Like
speeches.
speaking arrangements and stuff.
Yeah, there it is. Speaking range. I don't know, whatever. I'm sorry. It's 10:20. So
You're good, man.
but he would do that, and he would say also in his interviews, like God writes straight with crooked lines, right? And so like there is that protection. Like the Holy Spirit may not directly pick a pope, but we do have a guarantee that the Holy Office will not work against the faith that would undermine that hell would prevail, right?
Right.
Like that is a promise we were given by Jesus. And so, when you look at cardinals that are promoting like horrendous things,
You should have some comfort in that for sure.
exactly.
You should have total comfort.
Yeah, because we have 2,000 years of popes that were not great guys, not compromising the faith, and even though they could have. So
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, it's just the concern of like what I don't know how you want to say it. Obviously not the doctrinal or the what that wouldn't happen, but I mean more of like like if a pope came out and was talking about how great it would be to have female deacons. Like, could you imagine that? Like, how great would it be to have female deacons if a pope said that? And didn't do it, of course, but that stuff that would be pretty terrifying.
Yeah,
something like going as far as you could, but not there totally.
Well, right,
because that's been done in the past on like more minor issues. But yeah,
yeah,
no, that's pretty terrifying.
Well, you're right, because like you'll have yeah, because like I remember the interview with Pope Francis where the woman gave the most ridiculous guilt trip of a question, where asking if you could have women priests or women deacons, and he goes
so
no.
Classic.
Yeah, and it's so great because the follow-up question to the no, because she gets startled. Like it's like she was kind of expecting the I don't know if she was expecting.
It's shocking to me that she was startled. It's like you asked,
right? Like it was just kind of like you could tell she wasn't comfortable with it, and she's like, well, could she be a deacon? And Pope Francis was like, well, she cannot be a deacon with holy orders. And I was like, okay, like that's very clear, but like not great in the current climate. So like he's correct. Like I don't disagree at all with what he's saying. And the early church had deaconesses, but they were performing
not ordained.
Yeah, they were performing.
Is that the right term?
Baptisms.
They didn't have holy orders.
Yeah, they
weren't ordained.
Yeah, they weren't ordained. And so they were doing functions of what do you call it? Like baptism and stuff. And it's like it would be very bad right now to have like
that would not be good.
Giving any leeway for that just because of the climate. So it's not that it would be wrong. It's just the climate, like you would reinforce like the boomer women who are like, I'm a priest, and you're like, no, you're not. Like
Yeah.
like, so
The last thing they need is encouragement.
yeah.
that's gonna be taken out of context. But actually,
Well,
that is true. Like, why give them any ground at all? I mean,
well,
I
right.
agree with that.
Well, right. And I used to be in the Diocese of Kalamazoo, and I remember being at the cathedral, and the bishop, what was it? I was reading the bulletin because I got there just I think like a half hour early or something. And there was a clarification in it where it said anybody who goes to the ordinations of women, um, which was going to happen. It was announced to happen
Ooh,
by people who were claiming to be Catholic. If you go there, you will be excommunicated.
dang.
And I was like, wow, that's awesome. Like, I'm
Yeah,
so
that's
glad
great.
Bishop Paul's like this. And so he's no longer bishop there, but
This was where you are?
so this was in Kalamazoo. So I'm in the
Oh, sorry, you
Archdiocese of
just said that.
Detroit. But yeah, the Diocese of Kalamazoo did that, and I was just like, that's awesome. And so like you get like I said, it's we don't have any choice. So it's more or less just kind of like we have to just pray for the cardinals. I think Mark said that
Yeah.
when he came in. Um, but yeah, like just to be able to pray for the cardinals, because right now we don't know who's going to be elected, and um, obviously we have, there's some people who have like preferences, but you know their preferences, like they
Right.
don't really mean anything. Oh,
Right.
and you
Anyway,
have the people putting up schism lists. Oh my gosh.
who is doing that?
So I
That's
ended
the
up
most toxic behavior in
well
any
look up.
event.
Yeah, like I mean you could find it.
I'll look it up. It's on Twitter.
Yeah, it was on Twitter. Yeah.
Oh,
So
jeez, of course it is. I'll look it up. What you keep going.
okay. Oh, and so
Oh my
Star
gosh, yeah, I see them.
brings up just don't bet on it. So there used to be part of canon law that you would be excommunicated if you bet on either the length of the conclave or the who was going to be the pope. That used to be an excommunication, excommunicable offense. So since the 1917 revision, and obviously we're under the 1983, that seems to have been abrogated. I don't know for certain, but that's what it seems to be whenever I looked it up. But I hold I'm giving something based off my prudential understanding. So I'm not a theologian, but I'm I guess I'm not loose with when it comes to stuff like this. So it's not like I haven't looked at it. If you want the definitive answer, ask like Trent Horn or Jimmy Akin doing Catholic Answers or something. But prudentially, this looks like something that you really shouldn't be doing. Like you shouldn't be profaning the act of a holy office choice by gambling on it, because it lessens the like to you it less like if you're betting on it, like it lessens your appreciation of it, but then to everyone else you're giving everyone else this casual understanding of something that is inherently holy. So that's my point.
Yeah, that could cause some serious problems because then people would fight for inside information. I mean, I'm sure that's probably why I was in there.
I mean,
That's
there's like
real
a whole
nasty.
yeah, like there's a whole bunch, like or like if someone bet, like imagine a cardinal. So like we have this, the Nancy Pelosi problem, right? When it comes to stocks, where everyone follows Nancy Pelosi's stock picks because she seems to get indication of what stock's going to go up based off her actions, and that's what other people have said. And so I'm being very lawyerly in my language where I'm just seems to whatever. But it's like there are other politicians that do that too, where it's like they have insider information based off laws that are going to pass. Like, for example, like we saw that publicly with the tariffs, where that's going to influence different job markets, and their stocks are going to go up and down based off it.
Yeah.
Imagine betting your like family fortune on the Pope. Like I'm serious though. Like that
It's
is
so yeah.
Like it's very risky, but that was the like 500.
People have done it.
Yeah, like 500 years ago, that was the political theater that really mattered, right? So like our political theater is just kind of this circus that happens every 2 years, right?
Mhm.
So, but like when it comes to people that lived 500 years ago, like you're talking about like the Pope. Like people cared about what the Pope did because the Pope was the one who basically said your king's the king, right? Like he was the one that would not him directly, but a bishop would be the one that would crown the king. And so whoever was in charge of the bishop crowning the king, I mean, just naturally is a very powerful person. And so that was a type of theater, right? Although it wasn't as much theater as our 2-year circus because they're secret, right? Like they're going to be behind those doors, and we're just not going to see much.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's all good points. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's even today, it's like if Pope Francis didn't, he said what he said about JD Vance, but like hypothetically, if he had like hit the gas, and like really came down on him, I mean, it would cause a global stir for sure. I mean, even in America, maybe not as much in here because there's fewer Catholics, but if it was in, for instance, like France, or I was about to say Germany, Poland, it would be a huge deal. But even with America with 20% Catholics, I mean, I mean, if he didn't stop, I'd be like, all right, what's going on here? Yeah, I would definitely take a second look and side with the Pope eventually, or be way more skeptical. So, I mean, yeah, even today it still has that power and just soft political pressure.
Yeah, because like, I mean, he doesn't have like, he is still the head. Like, just think about it like logically, like, and I'm not saying you're not thinking about it logically, but like whatever. That's just a phrase.
You're fine, man. I got you.
So it's this, every Sunday, a quarter to 50% of 1.5 billion Catholics hear this man's name at Mass. Like that is a lot of people that
There's
are
nobody else on earth that even pales to that. It's not even close.
Yeah, not even close. And so he naturally has this power, even that other people just don't want to give him or recognize, but he has it.
He has it.
Like,
and it's probably never going away.
Yeah. Well, yeah, not right now.
Until like close to the end, right? I mean, I guess there could be something, but
yeah. Right. And there's an ebb and flow. Like right now we're kind of like in a crazy time where secular religion is dominating. But it's starting to go the other way. And I'm not saying that because of the President Trump winning in America, but there are other parts of the country or countries in the world where they're like, yeah, that was kind of crazy. Like we need to back off. But yeah, like hopefully it doesn't. I'm all for the Pope being recognized in a more pronounced manner in America, because I think we placate our Protestant neighbors too much, and it's just correct me if I'm wrong, like from your experience, but like from my experience on Twitter, the reason why people love the Deus Vult like Catholic posting is because they're proud to be Catholic and they're saying it out loud.
Yeah, I
Like,
definitely think so. I mean, when I was considering converting, it was like I was. I mean, actually, my whole life, I've been pretty fortunate. I've been to, well, two, kind of three parishes that I've attended in my short time, just because we moved a few times. But they've always been very solid. But had I come into one that was, like you're saying, pretty wishy-washy,
mhm.
karaoke. Sorry.
I don't
Then
know if
yeah,
you've seen that, but that's hilarious. Thank you,
I've
Laura.
seen it. But yeah, if I went to one that was like wishy-washy or yeah, I don't, it would have definitely had an effect on me. I don't know how much, but
So
I
I had,
probably would want to be in a different parish
well, so like, because like
at least.
I ended up growing up in a parish that didn't really have a pastor. It had a religious sister as the administrator of the parish,
Mhm.
but we would get a visiting priest every week, and it it definitely looked like every Protestant. Like, I mean, it looked like a Methodist church.
Yeah.
Like, it was comparable to the Methodist church building, because yeah, Methodist church building in the town that I lived in, which was basically one third Protestant, another third a different type of Protestant, and then there was the Catholics. And so we were like the minority, but it was like we looked like everything else. And it wasn't until I went into, like, when I was in adulthood, that I could actually explore the more um, grandiose parts of the faith,
Yeah.
because that town was just very, I mean, I was a kid, right?
Yeah,
So
you didn't know.
right, and so like seeing all that, um like, it was great. But like, when you see online and you hear, like, I know in some of my videos I've done where I've talked about, like, the TLM only crowd is wrong,
Mhm.
because most people don't have a TLM close to them. um
Yep.
Part of that is from personal experience. Like, I didn't have a TLM close to me, and I could not just go to a TLM. And people in my comments would say, yeah, like, that's my perspective as well. Like, I the next TLM is 4 hours away. Like, I can't go there. And so that's not to say I don't like the TLM. I mean, there's a missile right there for it. There's also a Maryknoll missile, which is the intermediate mass between Vatican II and uh, the Novus Ordo. But
Hmm.
it's the understanding that we don't, you can't throw out everybody for a movement.
Right,
Like,
right.
it doesn't work. Um,
No, I
yeah,
totally agree. That's my only issue with it. I mean, I've said it on Twitter before. A lot of people probably don't know this. I've only been to the Novus Ordo, and I mean, the parish I go to now, a little more flexible, but it's not bad. The one I
Mhm.
first went to was very, very traditional. Used Latin a lot, but I've never once bashed the TLM because it's so be it. I'm not.
Yeah.
What possible good can come from that?
Well, so like, what gets me in
I have nothing against it either.
when I
And
was
one
in
day I want to
Kalamazoo.
go.
Well, so when I was in Kalamazoo, um, that's where I first went to like, I was at a TLM parish as a parishioner, and I had my exposure to the TLM for the first time, and we stayed there, and then we moved to the Archdiocese of Detroit, and we've been at a Novus Ordo that has been getting more and more reverent in its practices,
That's great.
and so to the point where we've added altar rails. We don't
Oh
have
wow,
female
altar
altar
servers.
servers. We don't have any extraordinary ministers. Um, like,
Wow.
it's pretty solid, and we have Latin in the ordinary and an organ, and we do Gregorian chant now. So, like, I
Huh.
mean, it's a unicorn, I guess, is what I've heard the term. But I mean, we have probably, so part of me is just advertising the channel just for a little bit, but like, uh we have a sung mass for one of the Marian feasts, and I forget what it is, but it is um the closest. No, I think that is the closest thing to a high mass that the Novus Ordo has, and it's just a recording of it. And so everything is sung. The readings are sung by the lectors. The gospel is sung by the priest. The priest is singing every single response. It is the highest form of the Novus Ordo. Well, I'm sorry, it's not the highest form. It's the second highest form. There's another one behind, above that, but it's something that most people don't actually know, because they'd always get this hodgepodge of everything's mixed. And so, the Pope, or not the Pope, but the priest likes to do the Kyrie and sing that, but not anything else. Like, you'll get things like that. But yeah, so like we definitely have like our direction is very much like glorifying God in that way. Now I just want to point this out, because I know somebody may be thinking it at the very least, like, why don't we go TLM? Well, because the priest can't. He, by the motu proprio, he cannot go TLM. And so we're with the priest in doing the most reverent masses possible. So just to counter that point, because I know sometimes people were like, you're just LARPing. So it's like, no, we're not LARPing. You're not thinking of the priest that can't do anything else. And so, yeah, sorry. Little bit of a tangent.
No, you're all good, man. Yeah, we have one, I don't have Ultra Rails, but it's pretty similar. What you're saying, it's about almost as reverent as you could be. I mean, I love it, but yeah, I mean, I'm pretty neutral on the topic. It's just annoying seeing the it's just so needless, the bashing and everything. So yeah,
right.
Could be an interesting part for the next Pope. I mean, it'll definitely be a question, at least from Americans, in terms of like the extraordinary form of the Mass versus the ordinary form, liturgical cleanup. I mean, I would imagine has to be being discussed, but I could be totally wrong.
Well, I'm sure that is
guess.
something, like, I'm sure that is something that is being talked about in these general meetings, because like there's a notable, like, the laity recognize there's enough people, and I know some people don't treat online as real life, or they kind of like pretend it doesn't matter, but it's like, no, like I'm sorry, most people can't contact their bishops, and their bishops take them seriously when they say, hey, like, this guy just blessed the crowd with like a baby and then put the baby on the altar, right? Like, it's a crate. Like, I've seen that, and I've reported it to my bishop, but it's not feasibly, I don't see anything being done about it. Or like you see other liturgical abuses, and it's like, online is a way of communicating that. And like, you don't just cherry pick necessarily like the loud voices, but you can kind of see a generalization or a general line that forms, where like people just don't like liturgical abuses. They don't like going from one parish to another and having to adapt to something stupid. Like, I don't know how else to say that. Like, it's just adapting to something stupid. And
I don't know if I've wondered before, is this like, I mean, is this like a mostly American thing? I guess German too, a little bit, probably. But like, how isolated is it? I don't know. I really have no idea.
So I have a friend of mine. So Pilgrim, his name's Pilgrim. He has. Let me.
Yeah.
Let me.
I think I know who you're talking about. He has a channel and he's on Twitter, right?
He's not on Twitter, but he's. Maybe
I'm thinking of someone else.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna share him for a second because I like him. So Pilgrim Pass, like, he's a nice guy. Great guy. He's from Brazil. Does a lot of great videos. Very faithful Catholic. So I recommend you looking at him. But I'm not going to showcase him too much because I don't want to. He's got way more subscribers than I do. like 95.
Yeah, bit.
So, but but we talk on Discord, and we've had this conversation. We've had the conversation in the one video I did with him, where it was just a conversation between us, where there are people who have a preference for the reverend, because like in South America, there's a lot of like charismatic movements happening, because they're trying to, like America did, fight Protestants by being or looking more like Protestants. And that doesn't have staying power when it comes to like the difference between the different faiths. I'm not saying the charismatic movement within the church is wrong. That's not what I'm saying. But
yeah, you mean charismatic Protestants.
Yeah.
And like that. Yeah.
Yep. And so
it is very different.
Yeah. And so it's when he's talked about it, he actually isn't he's now in Europe, but like we've had this discussion. And so from him, I know it's an anecdote. He's just one guy, but there are other people who do recognize that more reverence could be applied to the Mass. And it isn't just you're flipping a coin when you go into a different parish. Because like where I live, like in Michigan in the Archdiocese of Detroit, there's like a bunch of parishes within a mile of each other, like several intersections. Like, all right, there's a parish. All right, there's a parish. All right, there's a parish. They don't have the population they used to, but they're still doing like boomer-esque type things. It feels like a club. They're different.
That's how it inevitably gets. I feel like I've never been somewhere like that. I know they exist. I'm not denying that. I don't know how widespread it is, or I'm sure there's way more of it than I like to think, but eventually it just gets like that. Like it's just your core group. I guess you could say.
And they're just aging, and they just age out.
Right.
And the crazy thing is it's an area that's surrounded by people. So it's not like it's isolated in a random corner where there's nobody. It's like, no, there's a whole group of people around. You have like 200,000 people within like 20 square miles. So like that's bad. It's ridiculous to say that you can't get more people, but if you're only having like 200 people and they're all over the age of 60, okay, well,
that's kind of over.
Yeah.
Unless you make some like big changes. Yeah. It's time for self-reflection.
Yep.
Like, what's going on here?
And there's a lot of, unfortunately, there are a lot of places that are like that. And so not just in the diocese of the Archdiocese of Detroit, but in other dioceses across the United States.
Yeah, I believe it.
Right. And
especially in like, if you think about like retiree communities or like places like that, where those people will naturally kind of go to. I just feel like that's kind of the crowd. I mean, everyone I know that was brought in, and again, maybe I'm a little biased because we have it pretty good where I am. But everyone I know that was brought into the church, these new converts, they're all, I mean, if anything, they're going to advocate for a more reverent Mass.
Yeah. And
I don't see any of them going the other direction personally.
Yeah.
Though I'm sure they're out there.
I don't think that I've read that too. And most of them are anecdotes, but like, it's really hard to understand like what that is. Like,
yeah.
Like, what is it? My daughter, for example, just did confirmation. I know she's a cradle Catholic, so it's not like this is like a,
congrats,
what you're talking about, but she just got confirmed earlier this year, and her name that she picked for her confirmation was Alice, St. Alice. You don't hear that name.
I was about to say I have no clue.
Yeah, exactly. Like you just have no clue. And you listen to like people's testimonies, especially on X, because obviously, that's a thing. You have there's some people in the meme channel that I have that a bunch of them came out and said, hey, I got confirmed. And some of them added their saint name that they picked. And it's like they're all older. Like they're all older sounding.
Okay, so I have noticed that. I saw like 3 of those in the past few weeks. No, I saw more than that. I mean, I picked St. Francis de Sales, which is very well known, but No, I know what you're talking about. I've seen that trend.
And what's crazy to me, and it kind of fits with this, actually, most people who wouldn't advocate for a more reverent mass wouldn't typically join the church in the first place. They would likely choose Protestantism.
I
The
think that's
idea,
actually kind of true.
yeah, and I think there's
That's a
a
good point.
the point there though is, when you hear of stories, like it's almost like people on the outside take us to be the hardcore Deus Vult that a lot of us
They
on
do.
the inside just want to go back to. It's like, gosh, I just want to go back to that, where it's just like, you're unapologetically Catholic and
Yeah.
you don't feel like you're always on the defensive. You just say, like, I'm Catholic. Like, you're not afraid to do the sign of the cross, like as you're eating with your work buddies, right?
Yeah.
Like, or something practical that someone could do.
It's
And
crazy to me. Like, again, I'm a convert, so I know I have blinders, but that was something I realized in the past, like maybe like 2 years ago. I'm like, wow, this really, like, what what are you doing here if you don't pick the sign of the cross when you bless your foot? I mean, that's, you know, sidetracking, but yeah. Again,
well,
this
so
some of
like,
this stuff
because
is
like
like shocking to me.
I work for a corporation, and the people I work with, when we go into the office, like, we'll eat together. And
Mhm.
I know a lot of them are Catholic, but they don't do the sign of the cross. And I know some of them still go every week, because we've had conversations here and there. But like, they don't do the sign of the cross, but they're also like 15 to 20 years older than me.
Hmm.
And so they're from a population of a generation where they just didn't do that because it was something you kept to yourself. And that
Ah, I
is
see.
inherently wrong. Like, you don't
Oh
do it
yeah.
to bash on people. So like, you're not doing it to drop, mic drop, or
Or flex. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's a flex, but it's just like, this is your food. Just say grace.
Yeah. Say a
Just do
Trinitarian
it.
prayer.
Yeah. And so,
Yeah. No, that's a good point. That is kind of, there. You forget these people were like still part of that, like that that the massive psyop basically that happened during that time.
well, right. And a lot of the people, so, and that's where, like, a lot of the trads come from. So like, I would consider myself probably trad light. I wouldn't be like trad. I don't go TLM only, right? Like, that's not what I do. But
Mhm.
but I do promote the TLM. Like, if you want to go to the TLM, I say, like, go to it. But like, if you're the people who are going to the TLM, and this is not their fault, right? Like, I'm not saying that it's their fault at all. But when they go to the TLM and they don't want to go to the Novus Ordo, part of that reasoning is because they're reading stories of St. Thomas Aquinas describing the Mass, or St. Thomas More, or a number of other saints that lived and worshipped in a Mass that's more like the TLM than the Novus Ordo. And these people are heroes of the faith. And so they want to connect with them, right? Like, and there's nothing wrong with that, because
Yeah.
that connection should be there. It's just not, like, it's clearly not revealed, because I don't want to say anything heretical or wrong. The Novus Ordo expression that's at a typical parish is not the same as the TLM. And there seems to be a lack of reverence. And so, coming back to your point about the popes, the people who would talk about uh, the conversations that would come up between those that are voting, that's, I think, absolutely one, the liturgical abuses or the liturgical reforms that are needed, either with the Novus Ordo itself, removing the motu proprio, a number of things, because at the end of the day, like, uh, people are and have been scandalized by how that's been expressed. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I can't argue with that. If I saw liturgical abuse, especially in like now, I think it'd be fine. I'd be like, all right, well, this is pretty bad, and it's not the end of the world. but I'm going to tell the bishop and, do all that. I mean, I would definitely do that. But if it was early on for me, it would have a big effect on me for sure. It would definitely shake me. So I'm sure that's true for a lot of cradle Catholics. I know it's true for probably most converts, especially in those few uh, first 1-2 years for sure. Yeah, can't argue with that. I mean, it would be great to see it cleaned up.
Well, because like, there's some cardinals that actually like were like they grew up in the Latin Rite, or I'm sorry, not the Latin Rite, with the TLM, right? So it's they grew up with the TLM, and then the Novus Ordo happened, and it's like I tried to explain it to someone where it was like, and I guess I'll just talk about it here, but like imagine you have the TLM, like that's all you've ever known, okay? And you have the devotions, right? Like you're doing Ember Days, fasts, whatever. And then all of a sudden, all of that's removed. There's no fast days. There's no, except for during Lent. There's only a handful of holy days of obligation, and then the Ember Days are taken away. And then on top of that, your mass now looks like the Methodist service down the road. And on top of that, Latin, you do have some really radical innovations. Like you have literal clown masses, but like I know that's like an extreme case, like because most people can't actually relate to that right now. But like you did have like extreme cases of abuse, but like just from the most normal expression, like you have this change that really impacted the population, because they felt like their practices were being taken from them, and those practices brought them closer to God, and the mass closer to God. And so it wasn't a matter of like they weren't unfaithful, but how everything happened, it was scandalizing to them. And I don't
shocking.
understand,
No,
right? Like I don't think people understand that shock. Because like for some people they'll be like, well, I've been to the Novus Ordo and the TLM. I'm like, yeah, but like you grew up with just the Novus Ordo, right? Like you grew up with a very, like, compared to the TLM, a watered down version of the mass. Now I'm not denying the fact that it has, I mean, I go to the Novus Ordo, like that's what I regularly go to. So there's nothing really that I need to defend. It's just a matter of the TLM like is much richer in terms of its expression and what it asks for in the mass, and to have that taken away and watered down to a severe degree is I mean, I'd be surprised if people didn't get shocked from that, and then also at the same time have those practices removed that did bring you closer to God. Because instead of having like, what is it, we have about 60 days of obligations where we either do go to mass or we have like abstinence or fast. We used to have like a third of the year. So like once every 3 days you would do something. And
I believe it. I mean, if you take into account like even just like the strictness of Lent, that'd make a huge, I'm just thinking
and
about
that doesn't mean,
I totally believe that.
Right. And I'm not saying we have to immediately go back to that, because I don't think our population can, like from a conditioning standpoint. But it's like getting back to the point with the Pope is that you're going to have people who remember that and who are going to have that in their mind as they're voting. And so they're going to, however they've understood it, because we're only looking at like 133 people making this choice. With the youngest being, I think, 49, right? Like, the oldest I think is like 79. But you have that very wide group of people having completely different experiences over the course of where they've lived and how old they are. And they're going to be making a decision for all of us, right? And I'm not saying that's bad. I think that's very good. It's just a matter of this is what will create kind of like when we finally do get a pope, your expectations are probably going to be challenged, right? Like, so like that's I think the point that I'm trying to make with this. So where it's like you may think, okay, well, like they're gonna go with Cardinal Sarah, right? And then they bring up someone else,
Yeah.
and then that was was because of all these different aspects, the liturgical aspect that we just talked about, and then at the beginning the political aspects of like, okay, well, is this going to be a guy from Rome or from Italy or Europe, dealing with the situations of another religion being right at their door that they have to now deal with because of the actions of politicians. And so
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I think a lot of people might think that I get from most of my activity on Twitter, but related to Pope Francis, people might think that I might disagree with some of that, but like, no, I mean, I think it makes sense. Everybody hates liturgical abuse, and yeah, there's no doubt. I try to keep in mind, especially if it's like someone that is, well, certainly a cradle, but an older Catholic. It's like, yeah, I really don't know. Like, this is still like I'm still the new guy here, and it's like there's a lot that happened before that I'm not sure how I would have reacted to it. Certainly would have been shocking.
Which part would be shocking?
With just like changes in your local parish and stuff that you've grown up with, and they take it away, and then people say, well, what are you doing? And then someone pushes back on you. I mean, how are they supposed to react? I kind of get that a little bit.
So
depending on the circumstances and whatnot, right? But for your average guy, yeah.
So I ended up seeing that in real time. So like, I can't say how awesome my pastor is in terms of integrity. Like, he has shown a great deal of integrity through COVID, but also when he initially came to the parish. I knew him from my kid's school that he was at, and then he was an associate pastor, became a pastor. We literally went to his second mass there, and we were like, okay, well, we'll check to see what happens, and based off that, because we were still looking for a parish to go to, but I had a lot of fruitful conversations with him, and so I went there with my family. And the first thing that happens is I'm kneeling during the Eucharistic prayer, but everyone else is standing.
Huh.
And he stops, turns around, and says, everyone, like, we are supposed to kneel at this point. The germ, like the general instruction of the Roman Missal, says that we are to kneel. And so please kneel as we're supposed to.
That's awesome.
And then he just turned right back around. Most people kneeled. It was nobody had.
Imagine not kneeling after that.
Well, so there was there was like 6 people that didn't kneel.
Oh my!
And there was like a couple. There was like a little over 100 at that mass. And so it was mostly older people, but it was, he did that, and it was like, okay, well, I'm gonna stay here. Like, that was like kind of my sign to me that it was like,
yeah, that's awesome.
Stay with this priest, and I'm going to help him. I'm going to help him.
You have my undying loyalty, Father.
Well, just because it was like crazy, because it was like,
literally,
because like he did get flack for it. He was also like
That's
only
crazy.
one. He was also the only one that didn't close up the parish during COVID in his area.
Whoa!
And so we got like an influx of people at that point, and yeah, he's a very good priest.
Yeah,
very based.
That was very based. That's when I came into the church. The priest at the parish I came into, he was actually literally did the same thing. I wasn't at that mass, but yeah, same thing with during the Eucharistic prayer. He had turned around and said, "This is what you're supposed to do." Everybody was talking. I wasn't there, but I had heard about it from like 10 people. And so same thing. I'm like, all right, I'll never leave here if it's possible.
Well, because
moved, but
yeah.
But like, I'll never leave. You got me. Like you see that and you're like, I'm here.
Well, and it goes back to your point about like what happens when a priest or a pope gets friction, like, you know what I mean, like in response to the changes. And that's an example. Like you had people who, like, it seemed like for the entirety of the previous priest, excuse me, he didn't enforce the germ. And so you had people for 7-ish years that were just there doing something they weren't supposed to do and never corrected. And then now they were corrected. You know, and this kind of goes into like, you know, other things where you have like, and this is obviously lower on the list where it's, okay, now what about the Orn's posture? So I'm not like trying to open a debate or anything, but like, I'm just
Genuinely
giving that
don't
as
know
an
what that is.
example.
Oran's posture?
Yeah. So like during the Our Father, like,
Oh,
raising
yeah.
hands. So like, or holding
yeah.
the hands. Some people will say that's not the Orn's posture. And I'm like, okay, well, no, they absolutely are. Their hands are just next to each other. And a priest doesn't have anybody next to him to hold his hand. And so like, it's a natural thing if your perspective is that this is like a togetherness moment where I have to hold your hand. But the
I keep my hands closed, man. I'm not touching you guys.
Yeah, and
No, I think I don't. Yeah, I won't start debating that. But yeah.
Well, yeah, because I don't want to deviate too long, and it is 11. So
I looked at back to the cardinal report. I looked at the Latin Mass restricting the Fides Ordo. It's kind of interesting that like most of them are unknown.
So
I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
Where's the unknown?
It's where they stand on that page. So at the top.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
That's a pretty interesting page.
Oh,
Have you seen that
like
yet?
awesome.
Yeah, that's what I was trying. Like, maybe we should pivot to this because this is literally very related to what we're talking about. Pretty interesting.
Ambiguous. You know,
the
crappy thing about ambiguous. The crappy thing about ambiguous is that it can go either way. Restricting the old Latin rite. Restricting the Fides Ordo. Old Latin. Why is there a check mark? Oh, got it. Positive.
The check mark is red.
So they're for restricting, and the X is that they're against restricting. Okay, so in this case you would want, straight X's with Cardinal Burke.
Is it really? Let me see. Where is he? Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
there's a few odd ones in here that I was like, man, that's pretty interesting.
Like these people. Okay, so Cardinal Fernandez blessing same-sex couples. Okay.
Yeah, let's see him.
All right, let's do one that's clearly a problem, and that doesn't require a ridiculous amount of nuance. Ordaining female deacons, like Cardinal.
Like you can't be ambiguous on that.
Well, I don't know why he's even in the running.
I don't honestly know what ambiguous means on that either. I mean, hey, you never know, man. I wouldn't count him out. I doubt it. I really doubt it, but you never know.
Vatican China's secret accords. Ooh, that'll probably play a bigger part than I think most people give it credit.
Yeah, it probably will.
Because like if we want to talk about like expanding,
that's a pretty big deal.
East, we have to go to China. We can't go to Japan.
Right.
But like Korea is crazy for us, like because we're having a ridiculous, like I think it's like a 2,500% increase from 1960.
I didn't know that.
Like, yeah, it's like it's just 25 times. But like we're Catholics are expected to outdo the Protestants in like the next 5 years or something.
Wow.
And that's awesome.
Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't even know that. Sorry, looking at this thing. I probably shouldn't be doing that while we're talking.
No, that's fine.
It's pretty interesting.
Let's see. There he is.
Another one I found too.
What? Oh, right here. Jean-Claude.
Jean-Claude?
I grew up with Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, so
where is he? Where's Jean-Claude? There he is.
Straight out of Woodstock and early 70s casting. No.
He's on a cell phone in
Awesome.
the picture too.
That's awesome. Right. So you have you have Cardinal Burke, which is all the X's, and then you have Alaric, which is all the check marks.
He is all check marks.
Oh my gosh.
What in the world?
Uh,
Why is he ambiguous on the synodal way? The synodal way is very vague from the critics.
Got it. There's German synodal way.
It's like a super vague one, so I guess that kind of makes sense how he could be ambiguous. Because the way it's expressed by like some of the people that are involved in it is very different than how we talk about it. With like, but I'll just say nuance. Nobody make fun of me, but yeah, like it is. I mean, I guess in all the things we're concerned about the synodal way, he's probably supportive of it, I assume.
So yeah, it would be ordaining women as deacons, allowing married priests, and revisiting teachings on homosexuality. So it is just basically the. Oh, get that out of here! You just got to click the title. Yeah.
Wait, where's that? Revisiting teachings?
No, you just click you see what I'm doing?
Oh, sorry.
So you just click here. So I like how interactive it is. And what's great about this is that it actually had a back-end developer do a good job at this.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like
That's so true.
It wasn't like someone who was like, oh, well, I'm going to do my parish website in the most like jank way.
That's so true. That's a good point. I was talking to someone about that today. But yeah, I won't get sidetracked.
I mean,
someone said, what is reassessing Humanae Vitae? Like, well, yeah, that's what?
So that means that is definitely looking at contraception as an option.
Right. That's what it says here too.
Yeah. So
how could you even? That's like actually probably the most extreme one. I don't even know where you put your footing if you want to do that.
Well, so because like you still have, so when Humanae Vitae came out in America and Canada, it was met with rejection. It was not propagated, like it was not something that was promoted within the church. It was something that was kind of sidelines. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see that all over the place. I'm like disappointed about Cardinal Fernandez. And I hope the dicastery in which he's in charge of like gets a new person, because like if he's I don't know how else to say that, because if he's for these things, like reassessing Humanae Vitae, like
that's crazy.
If that is true, why is he in charge of the expression of the faith in a delegation that actually
for doctrinal fidelity? Yeah, it's so the latter question for these is like where the faction lines will be drawn and what's going to influence like where those lines are drawn and how they're going to be crossed over, because to get that majority, that I don't know, there's a lot here that's a little tricky.
So Palermo, I think you bring up a very interesting thing, because it's not something that I was very familiar with, but it's something that I haven't like corresponded to within America at the time of basically our decline. But like I think you're right, like the decline from the 60s and 70s and the constant decline that we've had since then, especially when it comes to the religious members of the church, that descent probably just has a huge ripple effect, just absolutely massive ripple effect. It probably is one of the reasons why we have abortion done by, so many Catholics even today, unfortunately.
Yeah, probably.
And contraception, like those two issues are just like a plague on our society.
I didn't know that. I never knew that Pope Paul VI never issued an encyclical after that. Maybe I'm a ding dong for not knowing that, but like I didn't know that.
Yeah, he got. Because he basically got rejected from it, and it's really sad, but it also reflects like the problem, because I don't think that went away. So like,
doesn't seem like it.
Pope Benedict, like Oh, go ahead.
No, I
Sorry.
was saying I agree. Looking at this, I mean, yeah.
Because
Go
there's,
ahead.
in my opinion, like, obviously I'm not a cardinal. Like, I know these are all bishops, but a site like this, like, assuming it's being done in goodwill, um, which I have no reason to think otherwise of it. Because I know some people will be like, well, that's their opinion. It's like they could probably cite why, and like when you click into these, like you get, I mean, you get a pretty long explanation with citations. Like they literally give you the evidence,
Yeah.
right? Like, um, so it's not a matter of like these are just the loose opinions of people. It's like they provide the evidence for where these people stand, and I think that's awesome, um, because this will give the cardinals and more broadly bishops a better understanding of where these people stand, and then doing something about it, like either calling out, like, say for example, you didn't like Cardinal Burke on any of these things, like, um, that you call him out. Now, obviously, like I don't think he's going to get called out because he's just X's all the way through, and that seems to be the orthodox, standpoint. But like, uh, the idea though of other cardinals calling each other out, like we don't see a lot of bishops calling each other out. Like the most recent thing we had of that was the African bishops in response to, um,
FS.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so like that was a pretty hard, like, we need to stop and do something about this, and it was respectful too. Like, so it wasn't like it was like the dissent that Palermo brought up, from what I read, was pretty, like, really rude. Um, like it was just straight up like didn't care, and just did whatever. Um, Whereas like with the African bishops, they were like addressing the Pope or addressing the Vatican in a strong but
Yeah, with the respect that it's due.
with respect. Yeah.
I thought so too. I thought it was like that's a great example of how it should be done.
So I'm a bit cautious about that site. It's run and promoted by traditionalists. Right. I mean, like at the end of the day, like you're gonna have to just pick someone to do it. Um,
Yeah.
this idea of like we need to have a regressive back and forth where there's this person checking this person and this person checking this person. At the end of the day, like I showed, like I'll just, I don't, whatever, the Swedish, we'll just bring up the Swedish one. Like where he stands on ordaining female deacons, like it's right there, right? Like you can click on it and you can, um uh if they don't have the evidence, they don't have the evidence. And so, like, if facts are traditional because they go against your mindset, like, I think that's more of what you would want to deal with. Like, if I had a
There are
problem
some
with,
stray ones here though. I did notice to, I mean, I think you're right, but I did notice like the climate change one, I think it's kind of odd they included that. It has been big recently, but for Cardinal Burke, if you highlight it, it says he's against it, but it says Cardinal Burke has not publicly addressed the issue, but given his theological and political leanings, as well as his lack of focus on it, he's not likely to be in favor.
right.
So it does sound seem like they just chalked it up already, but which I don't think they're wrong, but yeah, I mean,
Well,
there's a
and,
few in
and
here, but I think
because
it's
like
generally
you do
seems to
have
be pretty
to,
good.
well, because like you do have to take into account the fact that like not everybody has like all the time in the world to evaluate the
True.
actions of Cardinal Burke. And yes, someone could abuse this, like because this ends up becoming a power site. So like to Kenshin's point, it is um it is something that could be abused. Uh People are not above being stupid like that. So it's this idea of this site setting a tone, I think is at least a baseline tone, like really good. Because these are I'm assuming if you're a bishop, you're an intellectual, like you have, like you're not a dumb person,
Yeah, I
and
wouldn't
like
think so.
so like you can follow up with it personally if you have a real issue with like Brislin being ambiguous on reassessing Humana Vitae, right? Like you can look into it yourself and maybe even just talk to him to understand, because we live in a time where a phone could be just picked up, a Discord call could be done. Like my friend Pilgrim, like he's in Europe and we had a 2-hour conversation like 2 weeks ago uh because we could, like, hey, like we're texting back and forth to each other, can we just like have a call? Like, and I understand bishops don't exactly have some of the leeway that I do with some of my time at my job. So which is when that happened. But the idea that if they're traveling, like they can have a phone call or something, um like that's not out of the scope of what they do. Like the United States bishops, for example, like they'll go on conferences for several days together, right? They'll meet in Washington D.C. or a number of other places, and they'll hold a conference, and that is so they clearly have the ability to have time together. I guess is just what I'm saying. It's just a matter of like this. You shouldn't stop here. You should do your own research. The additional um, problem that they have is the fact that they only have a week to do it. Right.
I was wondering that too. That is a really short amount of time for to do all. I mean, there's a ton that you could go into with that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Let's see. Reassessing humanity.
that's a hefty task.
Yeah, because like I don't.
I mean, it's impossible. You have to make at a certain point, you have to pray and make your best judgment and rely on God at that point.
Well, right, and I guess
I would assume, right? How could you possibly? Because anyone there could be elected. Anyone in the world, really, that's Catholic, right? So, I mean, obviously, it's just the people in the room, most likely, but even in that room, there's just such a long history with all these guys, and yeah, I never really considered that. And you kind of have to rely on the media, like Cardinal, I'm going to butcher the name, Arborelius was saying.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of puts a new light on that because, like, these guys read the same stuff that we do, and
yeah,
they kind of do have to rely on that to an extent.
yeah.
I don't know, not really a hot take, but it is interesting.
Yeah, that's why praying is really important. So, like,
yeah, exactly.
And being able to have a conversation with other bishops, other cardinals, is going to be also very important. And I wonder how many, because like right now these are the general meetings that happen before the conclave. I wonder how many, like you go back to here. So we'll go to.
So are they all, when they go into the general meetings, are they already isolated, in the secrecy of it, or is it not as restrictive?
No,
yet?
they're not in the secrecy. But they can, like, so for example, what I was bringing up was this non-voting cardinal can go to that meeting. Cardinal, oh man, I saw someone. Come on, where is he?
And I guess so could any other cardinal that can't vote.
Cardinal Whirl is someone who is there. Like, I mean, we haven't heard that name in a while, and he is related, Cardinal McCarrick situation. But like, he's going to be there, and like this idea of communicating to people, like I don't know where the line is where you can advertise or promote someone to being the Pope.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting question. I guess you could say whatever you want, but it seems like if someone, especially a non-voting cardinal, came in and just started running a campaign, I feel like most people, to me, that would be like, this is a red flag. Ignore this man. I assume they can't kick him out. Maybe they can, but
Well,
Seems
I
like he'd
mean,
be kind of
'cause the
shunned.
only thing barring them, well, except for him, I don't know why he's 76. And I don't. Okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
But like you have a lot of people who are just like old, right? Like they're just over 80, and that's why they can't vote. And
Yeah.
so the idea that they have influence like isn't necessarily a problem because they do have like, especially if their faculties are still there, mental faculties are still there, they're not going to have like, they're going to be more of a trusted source as opposed to a crazy old coot, right? I mean,
Pretty
some
true.
of them might have that understanding of people where, all right, he's just a crazy old guy. I'm not going to listen to him. But others may be like, oh man, he's like my older brother, right? Like I trust him like that. And so
Yeah.
you're going to have those dynamics. And I think that's kind of concerning, but at the same time, like, yeah, it's kind of concerning because there's just a lot of unknown. And this also brings it back to, that's why praying is important. So
The
back
hot
to what
take.
Mark said. Yeah.
No, but very true.
Yeah, Beku was the guy that we talked about him for a second at the very beginning. Yeah, he withdrew himself, which was pretty good. Yeah. So it is 11:25. So I should probably get going. I don't know
I was
where.
about to say, I think I'm about to tap out, man.
Yeah.
But hey, man, I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. It's yeah, and if you don't know him, so this is Become a Saint. So he just started his own YouTube channel. Let's see if I still have it. Yeah, Be Saintly.
Mm-hmm.
So
Got two on there right now. I'm probably gonna. I don't want it to be like an apologetics channel because there's so many of them,
yeah,
and there's already people that are good. I just want to do more of the things that aren't touched, especially in Scripture and the Fathers. So it is a
well,
work in
right,
progress, but any support is appreciated.
yeah, and yeah, I totally understand that because like I'm coming at it from a different angle too, where it's not theology, but it's like more numbers, like it's more analysis as opposed to um let's see, it's not theological analysis, it's more like
Yeah, like hard numbers.
yeah.
It's
So
interesting. I like it, man. I
so
learned a ton tonight.
well,
So I don't know how many times I'm like, oh, I never knew that.
I
That's
mean
probably
that,
most of what I've said. It's
no,
been
and
very
that's
interesting though.
and that's completely fine. It's yeah, that's fine. It's but me and you like definitely it's been a while since we've been like on a call on Twitter
We did
talking.
X, right?
Yeah, we did X with what is it? Once saved, always saved.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that too.
That was
I forgot about that. That was the first time.
and so that's where we met, was a once saved, always saved group of people were promoting it, and
And
me
we were
and
outnumbered like 20-1.
yeah, it was
20-2.
crazy.
We did
But
pretty
like
good,
we
man.
got up
I was
there
so
like,
glad when you got up. I was like, oh, thank God.
well, because like you were up there, like you were talking most of the time, and I was just like, hey, I'll say something. And then I was like, I brought up like the clear problem. Like I find this just to be like the silver bullet, which is the at the end of John 1, where it's like there's mortal sin and there's not mortal sin.
Right. And they're
it's
like,
like,
well, I don't. It's like, dude.
well, the guy, the so I know I'm like reminiscing this, and I'm sorry, but it's
No,
so
I
funny
forgot
to me
about that,
because he
man.
goes like, well, he's just talking about Sapphira dying at Peter, and that's
Yeah,
what
I
he's
remember
referencing.
that.
And I'm like, man, that is a stretch. Like, like why would you,
Crazy.
like, because at that point you're just saying that's actual death. It's not spiritual death, and that's the different whatever. It's
That was insane. But then we did. I can't remember which chapter of Acts we did that series. I think we got you for one of those, right?
I mean, I paid. I came in and listened. I didn't talk,
I thought we
so
had you as a speaker once.
no.
Dang.
So I didn't. Oh, you know what?
Oh,
No, you're right. And I kept losing my what is it? I kept losing my signal.
Dude, Twitter Spaces is such a mess.
Yeah. I don't know if it's gotten better since then because I haven't done. I think the last time I did it was with. Oh my gosh, why am I blanking on his name? I'm imagining him right now. He's avoiding
Sola?
Babylon.
Oh,
Avoiding Babylon. Not Anthony.
Rob.
Rob, yeah. Why did I forget his name? I'm sorry, Rob. If you're watching this later, whatever.
I like those guys. They might. Sometimes I'm like, those guys probably think I hate them, but I actually like those guys a lot. I think they're really entertaining and funny and have some good takes.
Yeah,
But I seem like I need to be better about like saying, "Hey, nice post," instead of saying, "Hey," you know.
But we ended up doing one on the TLM, like talking about the TLM, but me and Rob, and then there's a video where I did it with them. We talked about Our Lady of Champion and Our Lady of Akita. So with Anthony, so that was an actual video.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah. So, but it was fun talking about it because it was like I'm a huge advocate of Our Lady of Champion, and because of two reasons. One, because it's a Marian apparition in America, and two, because it promotes it's like a principle of subsidiarity where it's like, okay, well, we don't need to go to Lourdes, we don't need to go to all these other apparitions in other places, like places of apparitions in other places. Like Mary literally showed up here, like, and if you don't go to the one that's like in your backyard and you go to someone somewhere else, it's like,
it's a good point.
Like, why are you doing that?
I forget about Our Lady of Champion a lot. I read about it a long time ago.
It's only been it was approved like 3 years ago. So
that's probably why I read about it, because that was right around the time when I would have read about this sort of thing. And
I know what is it? We listen to Relevant Radio. We do EWTN, Relevant Radio, and Ave Maria. So like we listen to like a lot of it in our car rides, and Relevant Radio is doing a pilgrimage to Our Lady of Champion. So, and that's happening, I think, in May. So like in a half hour, right, in that month. So, but
very cool.
Hey, Hayes, nice to see you again in Tomorrowland. So make sure you check out Be Saintly or Become a Saint. His YouTube, his Twitter is also really good. So if you do X at all, like, he's really good there too. So
thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on too. I've really enjoyed it.
I appreciate you being on. It was a nice back and forth, and I expect a lot of people like I thought this might have been very good from the standpoint of like I've experienced a conclave before, and like what leads up to it, and just talking with someone who doesn't have that close of an experience, because I thought you just growing up, you experienced Pope Francis's conclave at a point when you were much younger than I was. Yeah. So and so like that's where I was coming from. I didn't know it's been like 3 years since you converted. So
I think it's been 4. But yeah, I do remember glimpses of it. I had 2 neighbors that were Catholics, and they talked about it a lot. And I'm like, what is a pope? But,
what is a pope?
Yeah. No, it's I'm really excited for it, to be honest. I have high hopes personally. I think everything will be fine in the end, right? But I honestly think it'll go well, and I think a lot of people, my worthless assumption is a lot of people will be happy with it. I think someone that's probably relatively more conservative will probably be elected. I could be totally wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's going to be based off whatever the first act. I think people will be like happy when he's elected, whoever it is.
Yeah.
But we're all going to wait on the first big act that he does.
Yep.
And that's going to be an indication of what's going on.
For sure.
So,
let's do it again sometime, man. Hey, what's going on? Rogue commenter from Bapto. What's up, man?
I don't know what Bapto is. So.
He is a friend of mine's alt. Bapto Catholic.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's a good dude.
So
He's a keeper.
yeah, and so we'll get off, and then don't get off on the stream. So with what we're in, but I
Mhm.
will shut down the stream if that makes
Okay.
sense.
So wait till the stream shut down. Then
I
do
just
it.
want to say something, but I got to say it off air. So
Gotcha.
so yeah, so yep. So thanks for everyone watching. I know it's like almost 2 hours, so I appreciate you listening to us have this conversation. And have a great day, and please pray for our future Pope.